My brother stole 10 years from my life. He took my savings, my name, and my future, and my parents handed him everything with a smile. But none of that mattered. The afternoon he walked through the glass doors of my medical spa in Austin, Texas, sat down in my best consultation chair, and told me it was time I finally paid my dues to the family. My name is Elena, and I am 32 years old. I am the founder and sole owner of Revive Wellness, one of the most sought-after luxury medical spa brands in Central Texas. I built it from nothing. From an air mattress on a friend's kitchen floor. From double shifts at a diner. From every single dollar I refused to spend on anything that did not bring me closer to the life I had been told I would never have. Before I tell you what happened that Tuesday afternoon, I need you to understand where I came from. Growing up, my brother Marcus was the golden child. He was 2 years older than me. Charming in the way that manipulative people always are. And my parents treated every one of his failures like a minor inconvenience, while treating every one of my achievements like an act of selfishness. When Marcus dropped out of community college, my father called it finding himself. When I graduated valedictorian, my mother forgot to come to the ceremony because she was helping Marcus move into his new apartment. I told myself it was fine. I was used to it. What I was not prepared for was what happened when I turned 22. I had spent 3 years working part-time jobs and saving every cent my grandmother had left me. $47. 0 inches, a trust account earmarked specifically for my aesthetics and nursing certifications. It was enough to cover my full licensing program, my first equipment, and a small lease deposit on a studio. I had planned every detail. I had a business plan printed and color-coded in a binder. I was ready. Then my father sat me down at the kitchen table one Sunday morning and explained, in the calmest voice I have ever heard, that Marcus needed the money more than I did. Marcus had found his passion project. My father said, a farm-to-table restaurant concept in the South Congress corridor. He had the vision, but not the capital. The family needed me to step up and be a team player. He slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a transfer authorization form, already filled out with my name and my account number. I said no. I said it once, clearly, and without crying. I was proud of myself for that. What followed was 3 days of my father screaming, my mother weeping into the phone to relatives, and Marcus telling anyone who would listen that I was a cold, selfish person who did not care about family. On the 4th day, my father told me that if I would not contribute willingly, I was no longer welcome in his house. He said I was a disappointment. He said I had always been the difficult one. He said Marcus understood the meaning of loyalty, and I clearly did not. My mother stood in the hallway with her arms crossed and watched me pack hose. I left with 2 suitcases and the $47,000 still in my account, because I had refused to sign that paper. That was the last time I spoke to any of them for a very long time. They did not call on my birthday. They did not check if I had found somewhere to sleep. Marcus sent me one text message 3 weeks later that simply said, "Hope you're proud of yourself." I deleted it and went back to work. The next 10 years were not a fairy tale. There were months I ate peanut butter for dinner because I was sinking every spare dollar into my business. There were licensing exams I failed the first time and passed the second time at 7 in the morning after a double shift the night before. There were equipment loans I paid off with brutal discipline. Vendors I negotiated with face-to-face because I could not afford to seem weak over email. I made mistakes, and I learned from every single one of them. But I built something real. By the time I was 29, Revive Wellness had a 6-week waitlist. By 31, I had opened a second location and hired a full clinical team. By 32, I had quietly expanded into commercial real estate, purchasing the mixed-use complex that housed my flagship location using a private holding company I had registered 2 years earlier. I had also, through my property management firm, acquired a small retail strip on the east side of Austin that housed 7 tenant businesses. One of those businesses was a farm-to-table restaurant called Harvest Table, which had been struggling to make rent for the better part of 18 months. I knew who the owner was. I had known for 2 years. I chose not to say anything. I was waiting to see what he would do. What he did was show up at my spa. It was a Tuesday in late October. The kind of warm afternoon that makes Austin feel suspended in summer, even when the calendar disagrees. My front desk manager, Priya, knocked on my office door at 2:15 and told me there was a walk-in group in the lobby who did not have an appointment. She said they were being loud and had refused to wait in the seating area. She looked uncomfortable in the way that people do when they have already tried to de-escalate something and failed. I straightened my white clinical coat, tucked my tablet under my arm, and walked out to the reception area. He was standing in the middle of my lobby like he owned it. My brother was 44 now, heavier than I remembered, wearing a blazer that was one size too small, and the particular expression of a man who has spent years confusing aggression for confidence. Standing beside him was his wife, Tanya, a woman I had met exactly twice before, who was examining one of my framed certifications on the wall with the casual disdain of someone looking for a typo. Behind both of them stood my mother, holding her handbag with both hands the way she always did when she was nervous, but trying not to show it. My father was not there. I noted that immediately. Marcus turned when he heard my footsteps. His face did a complicated thing, a flash of surprise. He quickly buried under a practiced smirk. "There she is," he said, spreading his hands wide, as if he had been expecting a warm welcome. "Elena, you look good." This place turned out nice. I did not hug him. I did not smile. I stood exactly where I was and looked at him with the same calm, flat expression I used when a vendor tried to renegotiate a contract in bad faith. "You don't have an appointment?" I said. He laughed. The same laugh he used when we were teenagers, and he wanted to make me feel like I was being unreasonable. "Come on. We don't need an appointment. We're family. Can we go somewhere private? I've got something I want to run by you. It'll be quick." Priya glanced at me. I gave her a small nod. I led them to the private consultation room at the end of the hall. It was a clean, quiet space with white walls, a round table, and 4 chairs. I used it for client intake and, en occasion, for conversations I preferred to have away from my staff. I closed the door behind us. Marcus sat down without being invited to. Tanya chose the chair nearest the window and set her bag on the table. My mother perched on the edge of the remaining seat and looked at a spot slightly above my left shoulder, the way she had always looked at me when she could not quite meet my eyes. I remained standing. "It is good to see that the business is doing well," my mother started, her voice carrying the particular warmth she deployed when she needed something. "We hear things. People talk. Priya told me on the phone, you have 2 locations now." "Priya didn't tell you anything," I said. "You read the Austin Business Journal profile from last spring. I know because you're about to quote it." She blinked. Marcus cut in before she could recover. "Look, I'm going to be direct," he said, leaning forward on his elbows. "Harvest Table is going through a rough patch. The post-pandemic market has been brutal for independent restaurants. You know that. Margins are thin. We had some vendor issues. A staffing problem. Nothing catastrophic. But we need a capital injection to get through the next 2 quarters. And we need a partner who understands the Austin market. He paused, letting the word partner sit there. That's where you come in. I looked at him without speaking. He took that as an invitation to continue. I am not asking for a handout, he said, using the voice he used when he absolutely was asking for a handout. This is a legitimate business proposition. You invest $180. 000 into Harvest Table as a silent equity partner. And in return, you get 20% of the business. Tanya and I keep operational control. Obviously. Because we know the restaurant industry. You just supply the capital and collect your share when we turn it around. It is a clean deal. Simple. You would be helping the family and making a smart investment at the same time. Tanya nodded slowly from her chair, as if she were a board member approving minutes. My mother reached across the table. Elena. Honey, she said, touching the edge of my wrist. Family should take care of each other. Marcus has been working so hard on that restaurant. He just needs a little support to get over this hump. I pulled my hand back. Tell me something, I said, keeping my voice level. How did you find out where my flagship location is? Marcus frowned. It's on your website. It's on my website. I agreed. And did you also find out? From my website or from anywhere else? Who owns the commercial property that this spa operates out of? He paused. Something shifted behind his eyes. But he recovered quickly. You rent from whoever owns the building. That's standard. What does that have to do with anything? Just a question. I said. What about Harvest Table? Do you know who owns that building? We lease from a property management company. Tanya said, her voice taking on a slightly sharp edge. Cedar Ridge Holdings. They manage the whole strip. Why are you asking about our landlord right now? We're here to talk about an investment. Cedar Ridge Holdings. I repeated, nodding slightly. And in the 10 years since you've been in business, have you ever met the person who owns Cedar Ridge Holdings? Marcus stared at me. No. We deal with the property manager. Some guy named Derek. What is this? I reached into the pocket of my clinical coat and set a business card flat on the table. It was a simple white card, embossed with a small logo and 3 lines of text, Cedar Ridge Holdings LLC. Elena Vasquez, sole managing member. The silence that followed was the most satisfying sound I had heard in a very long time. Tanya picked up the card. She looked at it. She set it down. She picked it up again. My brother's smirk had completely dissolved. He stared at the card, the way people stare at a document that contains information their brain is refusing to process. You? He said. Me. I confirmed. You've been our landlord for 2 years. 18 months. To be precise. I purchased the strip in April of last year. You and Derek's team have been communicating through my property management office. All your lease payments have been going directly into my operating account. My mother made a soft sound. The kind that was not quite a word. Marcus sat up very straight. I watched the calculation happen behind his eyes. He was not a stupid man. He was a man who had spent his entire life finding angles. And he was currently searching for one now. Okay, he said. And the word came out measured. Almost careful. Okay. So this changes things. You are already financially connected to our business through the lease. An equity partnership is the next logical step. It's actually cleaner this way. We consolidate the relationship. You have a vested interest in our success as a tenant. Tanya leaned forward. Marcus is right. This is actually a better deal for you than we originally framed it. You're already exposed to the risk of us failing through the lease. If we close, you lose at tenant. If you invest, you give us the tools to survive, and you protect your rental income at the same time. I looked at Tanya for a moment. She was polished, quick, and completely wrong about which direction this conversation was heading. Walk me through the numbers, I said. Marcus blinked. What the numbers? You came here to ask me for $180. Ling ling ling. I want to understand the financial position of the business I would be investing in. What does your current monthly revenue look like? What are you running in overhead? What's your outstanding debt? He shifted in his seat. I didn't bring the books. We can schedule a formal meeting with the accountant, and then let's start with what you know off the top of your head. I said. What's your average weekly cover count? What's your food cost percentage running at right now? Marcus glanced at Tanya. She looked back at him. Neither of them spoke. You are asking me to invest $180. 000 into a business, and you cannot tell me your food cost percentage. I said. Not as an accusation. Just as an observation. It's been a challenging quarter, Tanya said, her voice losing some of its earlier confidence. We've had some inventory issues. Our main vegetable supplier canceled the contract, and we've been sourcing through a more expensive distributor. The numbers are temporarily inflated. You're 4 months behind on your commercial lease. I said. Another silence. Derek was supposed to handle that, Marcus said, the defensiveness rising fast in his voice. We submitted a deferral request in August. It was under review. I denied the deferral request in September. I said, Derek sent the denial letter on my behalf. I have the correspondence. Tanya stood up from her chair. Not aggressively, but with the particular energy of someone who has decided to change tactics. She walked around the table, putting herself between me and Marcus in a way that was probably supposed to feel collaborative. Elena, she said, dropping the formal tone entirely. Going for warmth now. I think we got off on the wrong foot. Let me be honest with you. The restaurant is struggling. Yes, but the brand is solid. The concept is still relevant. What we need is a partner who believes in us. Not just a landlord who sees us as a line item on a spreadsheet. You have been successful because people believed in you when you were starting out. Right. We're asking for that same thing. Not charity. Belief. It was a good speech. It would have worked on someone who had not grown up watching the same mouth deliver the same kind of speech for 40 years. Tell me something, Tanya, I said. When Marcus first approached my family for the money that eventually started Harvest Table, what did he tell you about where the seed capital came from? She frowned. He had savings. And his father helped. His father helped, I said. That's one way to describe it. I looked at my brother. He was gripping the edge of the table. Not tightly. Just with the particular stillness of someone who knows what is coming and is hoping the speed of events might somehow skip over it. Tell her, I said. He said nothing. The money that started your restaurant, I told Tanya, maintaining the same level voice, was originally designated for my professional licensing program. It was $47. 000, left to me by our grandmother, sitting in a trust account in my name. My father forged a transfer authorization to move those funds when I refused to sign them over voluntarily. Then, they kicked me out of the house, so I could not be on site to dispute the transaction with the bank before the window closed. I was 22. I spent 3 weeks sleeping on a friend's kitchen floor while your husband used my money to file an LLC and sign his first lease. The room felt different after I said it. Not louder. Just different in the way that rooms become when something true has been said out loud for the first time in a very long time. Tanya turned slowly and looked at Marcus. That is not entirely accurate, he said. And even as the words left his mouth, he seemed to know they were not going to hold up. I have the original bank records, I said. I hired a forensic accountant 4 years ago. I have the transfer documents, the signature comparison report, and a letter from the bank acknowledging the irregularity in the authorization paperwork. I did not pursue it legally at the time because I was focused on building something, but the documentation exists. My mother pressed both hands flat on the table in front of her. Elena, she said, her voice cracking. That was 10 years ago. We were in a very difficult place as a family. Your father made decisions he believed were best for everyone. He is not here today because his health is not good. And he is not able to have these kinds of conversations. We came here hoping we could move past all of that. We came here because we need your help. You came here, I said, because the restaurant is failing. Marcus cannot make rent. And someone told you that I have money. She looked at the table. Tanya had not taken her eyes off Marcus. Whatever image she had constructed of her husband's family history was currently undergoing a significant structural revision. And it was visible in the way she held her jaw. You knew, she said to him, quietly. You knew where that startup money actually came from. Tanya, this is not the time. You told me your grandmother left money to the whole family and your father distributed it, she said, her voice still quiet but with something underneath it now. You told me your sister got her share and chose not to invest it in the business. That is what you told me. I simplified it, Marcus said. You lied to me. I told you what you needed to know at the time. Tanya sat back down, picked up her bag from the table, and set it in her lap. She was no longer looking at me with the careful calculation of a business negotiation. She looked like a woman rapidly reorganizing her understanding of the last 10 years of her marriage. I gave it a moment. Then I opened the portfolio case I had set against the wall when we walked in. I removed a single manila folder and placed it on the table. Since we're discussing Harvest Table's financial situation comprehensively, I said, there's something you should both see. Marcus reached for the folder. I let him open it. Inside was a formal notice of lease default. Pursuant to the commercial lease agreement between Cedar Ridge Holdings LLC and Harvest Table LLC, the tenant had accrued 4 months of unpaid rent, totaling $28. Sube. In addition to late fees of $2. eBay. The notice outlined 2 available resolutions: full payment of the outstanding balance within 30 days, or voluntary termination of the lease with a structured exit agreement. Below the formal notice was a second document. It was a property assessment report showing that Harvest Table's location was the only commercial space in the strip currently in arrears. Every other tenant was current. Marcus stared at the papers. He turned to the second page. He turned back to the first. You're evicting us, he said. I am giving you formal notice of default. I said, which is the legal step required before any action can be taken. What happens next depends on what you decide to do. You would evict your own brother. He said it not as a question but as an accusation. Reaching for the old emotional lever the way he always had. The one that was supposed to make me feel like the cruel one. You walked into my place of business without an appointment. I said. To ask me to invest 170,000 into a company that is behind on the rent. It owes me. If you were any other tenant, I would have sent this notice 3 months ago. My mother stood up suddenly, the chair scraping back. She moved toward me with her hands open. And I recognized the gesture. It was the one she used to reach for when I was a teenager, and she needed to physically close the distance before I could walk away. Elena. Please, she said. He is your brother. Whatever happened in the past, whatever mistakes were made, we are your family. You are successful now. You have more than you need. Is it really worth destroying your brother's life over old grudges? Is that the kind of person you want to be? I looked at her. I had rehearsed this moment many times in my head over many years. Not as revenge fantasy, just as a way of knowing what I would say if it ever came. I want to ask you something, I said, keeping my voice low enough that only she could hear it clearly. The morning Dad told me I had to sign over my savings. Do you remember what you did that afternoon? She blinked. I don't. You went to your hair appointment. I said, I know because I called the salon to see if you were there. Because I was standing outside in the parking lot with 2 suitcases and I didn't know where else to go. The woman at the front desk said you'd arrived 20 minutes earlier. You did not cancel the appointment. You did not answer your phone. You sat in that chair and let them wash your hair while I stood in that parking lot at 6 o'clock on a November evening, trying to figure out if I had enough cash in my purse for a bus ticket. Her face did something complicated. I thought you had friends, she whispered. I thought you had somewhere to go. You didn't know that. I said. You assumed it because it was more comfortable than the alternative. She sat back down. The fight went out of her completely. The way it always did once the emotional leverage ran out. Leaving behind just a tired woman who had spent her whole life choosing the path that cost her the least. Marcus was still looking at the default notice. He had read it twice. He folded it and placed it back in the folder, with a deliberateness that suggested he was buying time. So what exactly do you want? He said. You want an apology. Is that it? I apologize. Dad made a mistake. It was wrong. Are we good now? Will you rip this up? I don't want an apology. I said. Then what? I want you to understand what's actually happening here. I said. You came to me with a proposal where you would receive $180. 000, and operational control of a business, while I would receive 20% of the equity in a company that is currently insolvent, operating on a brand that has lost market share, and 4 months behind on the rent it owes me. You framed that as me doing you a favor. You brought our mother here because you thought her presence would make me feel obligated. You counted on me still being the 22-year-old who was afraid of disappointing this family. I set the portfolio flat on the table. I am not her anymore. I said, I have not been her for a long time. Tanya, who had been quiet for several minutes, exhaled slowly. She looked at her husband with an expression I could not quite read, not anger, not sympathy, just a kind of exhausted clarity. How much is the total outstanding? She asked, looking at me. 30,500. I said, and the 30-day cure period starts today, as of when that notice was received. Yes. She opened her bag and removed a small black notebook. She wrote something down, closed it, and placed it back in the bag. Then she looked at Marcus. I will need to see the full financials when we get home. All of them. He started to say something. All of them. Marcus, she said. He closed his mouth. The consultation room was quiet. Outside in the hallway, I could hear the faint sound of the spa's ambient music. The soft electronic hum of a treatment room. Priya's voice at the front desk greeting a client. My actual life. And the one I had built one decision at a time, on the other side of every one of these people's choices. I was waiting for me 12 feet away. I picked up the portfolio. The 30-day window is real, I said. If the balance is cleared within that period, the lease remains in good standing. If it is not, I will proceed with the next legal step, and you will have 60 days from that point to vacate the space. I looked at my brother. I am not doing this to destroy you. I am doing it because it is what any responsible property owner does. You have had extended grace already. Marcus stood up. He was not angry in the way I expected him to be. He looked tired. He looked like a man who had been holding a very heavy thing for a very long time and had just discovered the floor was closer than he thought. She really owns the building, he said. To no one in particular. Both buildings, I said. The strip where your restaurant operates, and this complex, including the unit we are standing in right now. He let out a short dotty, airless sound that was not quite a laugh. My mother reached out and put her hand on his arm. He let her. They stood there for a moment. The two of them. And I watched the family dynamic. I had grown up inside of the one that had always left me standing outside of it. Looking in, finally reveal itself for what it was. Not a fortress. Just two people who had spent so long protecting each other from consequences that neither of them knew how to stand up without leaning. I held the door open. Priya will validate your parking, I said. They filed out. My mother paused in the doorway. She turned and looked at me with the specific expression she had been wearing my whole life. The one that lived somewhere between guilt and the defense against guilt. I had spent years trying to interpret it, trying to figure out if there was something underneath it that was meant for me. I am sorry, she said. I know that does not fix anything. I know you are, I said. It was the truest thing I could give her. And it was all I had. She walked out. I closed the consultation room door and stood alone in the quiet for exactly 30 seconds. Then I straightened my coat, tucked the portfolio under my arm, and walked back out into the hallway. Priya looked up from the front desk with wide eyes. Are you okay? I'm fine, I said. Who's my 3 o'clock? The Morrison consultation. Facial mapping and treatment plan. Perfect. Give me 5 minutes. Then, send her back. I walked to my office, set the portfolio on my desk, and sat down in my chair. Outside the large window, the Austin afternoon was golden and unhurried. The parking lot below held 8 or 9 cars. A mix of clients and staff. A woman in a yellow dress was helping her elderly mother through the front entrance, both of them laughing about something. I watched them and felt something settle in my chest. Not the sharp, electric release of a confrontation I had imagined in some form for 10 years. Something quieter, more permanent. The least default notice would either be resolved or it would not. That outcome was no longer emotional for me. It was logistical. Either my brother found the money and saved his business, or he did not, and he moved on. Either way, the decision was no longer being made by a 22-year-old standing in a parking lot. 2 weeks later, I received a certified cashier's check for $30. $500 from Tanya's personal account, not from Marcus. Tanya's. There was no accompanying note. I deposited it and sent a confirmation receipt through the property management office. I did not add anything to it. Derek handled the paperwork. A month after that, I met with my attorney to finalize the paperwork on a new philanthropic initiative I had been structuring for the better part of a year. Through Cedar Ridge Holdings, I was designating 2 commercial units in the Eastern Strip as permanent below-market spaces for early-stage businesses founded by women who had aged out of foster care or experienced housing instability in their early 20s. The units would be leased at 40% of market rate on 3-year renewable agreements. The first tenant scheduled to move in was a 24-year-old woman named Camille, who made handmade ceramics out of her car and had been waitlisted for affordable studio space for 11 months. I signed the paperwork on a Wednesday morning with a cup of black coffee and the city outside my window and the specific quiet that comes from knowing you have built something on ground no one can take from you. If you are listening to this, and you are somewhere in the middle of your own version of what I went through, working 3 jobs, eating carefully, saving what everyone else told you was not enough, I want you to hear this clearly. The people who told you that you needed their approval to succeed were wrong. Not a little wrong. Fundamentally wrong. The ground you are standing on right now. The discipline. The clarity. The refusal to stop. That is not nothing. That is the foundation. They do not get credit for what you build on it. They never did. If this story reached you, drop a comment below and tell me where you are watching from. Hit subscribe if you have ever had to choose yourself over the family story that was written for you. Your story is still being written. Make it the one that's true.